Well, good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck. It's Saturday, June 10th. Early afternoon. Temperature's about 80 degrees. Beautiful day. And thought I'd get out here and try to make a video. I haven't talked to you in a little bit. And the video I'm going to try to make today, I've been thinking about it for, oh golly, since before my surgery. And what it's about whether there is a connection between my prostate cancer and the Sasquatch people. Now that's be stretching it, and so, you know, if you're not on board with that, that's fine with me, but hear me out, because I think there is a connection. I don't think they caused it by any means, but I think they know what was going on, and I think they were guiding me, if you will, in how to handle it and what the treatment was. And I'm going to need to move this thing and adjust the seat a little bit, because I'm having trouble holding the camera right. I've got a way that I do there. That's better. Hopefully that'll work. I got a way that I do this in the van, and it helps me hold the camera steady. And I've got it kind of figured out as far as lighting is concerned and background and so forth. As you can tell, I'm in the van. I'm out in front of my house, actually. So anyway, getting back to my story, in order to really explain how everything goes together, I have to kind of go back a ways, quite a ways actually, and tell you about a couple of segments, and then I'll connect them all together at the end. So initially, most of my life, I've had dealings with kidney stones. And my body produces a lot of calcium, and the calcium reacts with certain food items and causes kidney stones. And those of you that experienced that before, you know that they're pretty painful. And so because of that, I've been under the care of a urologist for many, many years. And basically what that means is once a year I go in and he takes an x-ray and does some lab work and checks to see if I'm building up any kidney stones. All right. So that kind of connects into how my cancer was discovered. I'm going to take that part of it and put it up on the shelf here for a minute, and I'll come back to it. Okay, the next part, of course, is the connection with the forest people. Now, I've been interested in this subject matter. I've told you before in other videos since probably around the year 2011. Got real serious, started going out in the field and doing field research in 2012. Became a member of the BFRO and a field investigator for the BFRO in 2013. So I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary of that. The first 6 years of that, of course, I was out following looking for some kind of undiscovered ape, banging on trees and howling in the middle of the night and looking around with night vision, trying to catch some kind of a undiscovered ape. And in 2017, that changed, and I started looking for people. Okay, so now we'll take that segment, set that aside. Okay, a third one now is about in the spring of 2015, I started not feeling very healthy. I started running into breathing difficulty and energy difficulty. And it finally got so bad that in June of 2015, I told my wife I need to go to the ER. I think I'm having a heart attack. So I went over to the local emergency room, and they did a bunch of tests on me. And one of the things they use to test for heart attacks is they do a lab test called the troponin level. And an elevated troponin level means that there's heart muscle damage, which indicates that there was a heart attack. Well, my troponin level came back normal. So the ER doc kind of started blowing the whole thing off, that there was nothing to it. Well, in the process of doing their checking around, they contacted my cardiologist. And my cardiologist told them to check a certain lab test, and if it was elevated, then to do a CAT scan with contrast and look for blood clots. Well, sure enough, that was elevated. And they took me down. They still didn't believe there was anything wrong with me, and they took me in and they did the CAT scan with contrast, and they took me back to the little cubicle and closed the curtain. And about 20 minutes later, all of a sudden the curtain whips open, and they basically, everybody in the whole ER came in and medically gang tackled me, and I found myself in the hospital for 5 days on a heparin drip because both my lungs were full of blood clots. Well, the blood clots turned out that I'd had a blood clotting abnormality. Apparently had it my whole life, where my blood was too thick. So as I got older, I wasn't able to compensate for that as much as I could when I was younger. And so I started building up blood clots. And so in addition to having the blood clots in both of my lungs, which they told me was life-threatening at the time, and there's a lot of people that have died young due to pulmonary emboli, which is what they call blood clots. There's several of the rap musicians, especially the black guys with a little bit of weight on them, they suddenly died in their 40s from blood clots. Well, anyway, I also had what's called deep vein thrombosis, which was a buildup of blood clots in my legs, which kind of surprised me because I'm relatively active. But it was what it was, and it was what they found. So they put me on blood thinners, and they kept me in the hospital for 5 days till they got my blood thinning down to a particular level. Then they put me on ongoing blood thinners, and I still take those. So that's the third thing. Okay, so now let's fast forward to 2017 when I quit looking for undiscovered apes and I started looking for people. And I started having encounters with what I now refer to as the forest people or the Sasquatch people. Well, 3 summers ago, I was having a little bit of breathing difficulty at high altitudes. Now, I live at 5,000 feet, and our research locations up on top of the Mogollon Rim are at around 7,500 to 7,700 feet. And I was having a little bit of breathing difficulty up there. Well, one night in August of 2020, it would be, I was up there with my partner Kevin, and we got visited by a female elder named Eadengen. And I've talked about Eadengen before, and some of the stuff that I'm talking about today, I've talked about in other videos. So I don't mean to be redundant, but I have to tell it to tell the story. Well, Eadengen came over and stood in front of me, and she's about 11 feet tall, and she was cloaked, but I could see her pretty well. And she basically, they held me in my chair, and she reached into my body, and I could feel her hands in my lungs. And I've told that story before, but I asked her what she was doing, and she wouldn't tell me. And but it got to the point where I was having difficulty breathing, so I asked her to stop for a little bit so I could catch my breath. And she did that. She stepped back, and a little bit later, they gave indication they wanted us to go to bed. So I went to bed in the van, and as soon as I got laid down, she was back. And once again, she started to put her hands in my body, and I could feel her hands in my lungs. That time when I asked her what she was doing, if she could tell me, she told me one word, very clear in mind speak. She said she was cleaning. Well, during that period of time, go back to my urologist again, as part of these annual checkups, he started, in part of the blood work, he started doing what's called a PSA test, which is prostate-specific antibody test. And that's a test to determine if there's a possibility of prostate cancer. And my PSA level had started climbing. So at that point, he had already told me that there was I believe at that time, he said a 67% probability that I had prostate cancer, and that I was going to need to have a biopsy, a prostate biopsy, in order to either rule that in or rule that out. I hadn't had the biopsy at that time. So while Eadengen was working on my lungs, I told her about that, and I asked her if there was anything that she could do with my prostate cancer. And at that point, excuse me, got like a frog in my throat. Anyway, at that point, she ran her hands down through my body, and I'm wide awake this time. I can feel this happening. And she ran her hands down, and she basically put hands on each side of my prostate, and I could feel that. And she just did that very, very short period of time, 10 or 15, maybe 20 seconds. And then she moved them back up to my lungs again. She never said a word. So I'm still trying to, put 2 and 2 together on all this and figure it out. Well, she worked on my lungs a little bit more, and then they put me to sleep. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and I remember my lungs really, really hurt, and my knees really hurt for some reason. I don't know what happened, what was involved with my knees. But I got put back to sleep again. And the next morning when I woke up, I had no pain whatsoever, and I could breathe better, and I felt like $1,000,000. Well, before that, I was having my oxygen saturation, which is a little thing they put on your finger at the doctor's office. They call it O2 sats. Was running just a little bit above 90, 92 to 93%, which is considered below normal and just above the danger level. Well, after she worked on me, my O2 sats went up to 97 to 98%, where they still are, which was measurable results that she did something that actually worked. But I didn't know about the PSA. Well, after that happened, my urologist sent me down to what they call a targeted MRI, which is where they test your prostate. And what they can do is they can look for abnormalities in the prostate, but they can't tell for sure that it's cancer. Well, I came back, and yes, I had an abnormality in my prostate, and but they couldn't say for sure it was cancer. That indicated that I needed to have the biopsy. Well, I was still hesitant about the biopsy because it involves sticking a bunch of needles in your hind end and poking a bunch of holes in your prostate, and I didn't want to have that done unless I had to. So I actually went to an oncologist that I knew, and got a second opinion, and he said yes, that was the next step in determining, and that was the only way to determine for sure that whether or not you had prostate cancer. So I went ahead and had that done. My prostate, my PSA level at that point was running just slightly over 5, 5.0, 5.1 in that neighborhood. So as a result of the original biopsy, I was told that we could put it in what they call monitor status, in which case I had to have my PSA taken every 3 months, and I had to have another biopsy in a year. Well, for that whole year, my PSA stayed exactly the same. It never actually went down slightly toward the end of the year. But finally, after a year, my PSA started creeping up again. And I interpreted that holding level in the PSA, I interpreted that as something that the forest people were somehow involved in. It was something that Aiden had done. I wasn't sure about that. Well, along the same period of time, to add just another complexity to it, down at Crazy Town, I'd had an encounter with Tarragon. And Tarragon had made me confront my spirituality and brought me back to my spirituality, and actually entered my body and made me pray one night. And I've talked about that in my spirituality video, but basically he literally came in and took over my body and made me pray. And that was life-changing. And I have not gone since then. Every night I get down. I won't say I haven't missed a couple, because I have missed a couple due to some extenuating circumstances. But I get down on my knees and I thank the Creator for the day, and I pray every night. And before then, I was not a spiritual person. So when my PSA level started going back up again, and they told me I needed a second biopsy, I actually asked the forest people what the connection was, if there was something going on there, if there was something I was doing wrong. Well, I wasn't told very clearly, but I got the impression that what this was going on here now was a test of my faith. They were testing me to see if my faith was strong. So I made a commitment to myself, and I've talked about it in other videos, that if this was a test of my faith, and if that's what it was, then I was willing to put this whole situation in the hands of the Lord and back away from any medical treatment and just see where it went and trust the Lord that I would be taken care of. Well, I made a video about that, and I called it something about I know what the answer is, but I'm not sure what the question is. Well, shortly after I made that video, I was given a vision early one morning, and that vision basically was and I made a video about that too, and it's called the update, Wow, Just Wow. and where I was given a vision of basically a billboard on a hill that told me the surgery was okay. And there was no doubting that it happened. I was wide awake when I saw it. And it was kind of like they slapped me upside the head. Now, does that come from the forest people, or did that come from the Lord Almighty, or who did that come from? I really don't know. But it happened. So at that point, I said, okay, this is the connection. This is where, so I need to go and I need to have this surgery done. So now this is day 17 post-op. I'm doing better. I made a video at 14 days post-op, and basically telling how I was feeling, how I was doing. Well, about the middle of the afternoon, 15 days post-op, all of a sudden it was like the sun came out. I started feeling like I was out of that fog that I talked about in the video. And all of a sudden it was like I was alert, more alert. Well, then come back to last Sunday night. And last Sunday night, I had visitors. And basically, and I talked about that in one of my posts. I didn't make a video about it. But I believe that they basically gave me PT during the night, physical therapy during the night. And I woke up feeling great. And that was a further indication to me of their involvement. So I guess to wrap the whole thing up, do I think they were involved? Yes, I do. I certainly don't think they caused my cancer. I think it was just something because I'm an old guy and an ex-firefighter. But I think that they helped guide me through the process. And I think they helped me make up my mind and what to do. I think they gave me a test along the way to see if my faith was strong. I'd like to think that I passed that test. They haven't given me a clear indication that I have. But I think I passed their test. So now I've had the surgery. I'm on my road to recovery. I'm feeling better. I'm still dealing with the bladder control issues, but my understanding is that gets a little better as well. But you can see how everything that I've told you about all ties together. And that indicates to me that, yes, there is a connection. Yes, there is a component there. Neither one of them is functioning independently. Could the Sasquatch people have cured my cancer? I think they could have. I believe they have that ability. For whatever reason, they felt that what happened and the way that I handled it was the best way to do it. I don't know if it was beyond their capability. I don't know if the cancer was of a more aggressive variety. It was an aggressive variety, more aggressive than we originally thought. I think they probably knew that, even though I didn't and my doctors didn't. Until the pathology came back, they thought it was a less aggressive variety as well. So, do I think this all connects? Yes, I do. Do I have proof of that could stand up in a court of law? No, I don't. But that's the hypothesis I'm operating under at this time. So as I always tell you, take from it what you will. I'm sure there's more to it. The story's not over yet. But I wanted to make a video of it while I could hold this together. This is actually the first take on this, and I think it's going to go on the first take, which kind of amazes me. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to tell you, as I always do, take care of each other, love each other, take care of yourself, pay attention to what your body's telling you, because your body's smarter than you think it is sometime. If your body's telling you there's something wrong, there's probably a pretty good chance there's something wrong. So I'm sure there's stuff I left out of this. I may have to come back and add some stuff to it later. But for right now, I'm going to wrap this one up. And I'm just going to tell you to have a wonderful day. God made us a wonderful world. He's taking care of me. I'm on the road to recovery. And with that, I'm going to turn this around where I can find the button and tell you I'll catch you on another one real soon. And there's my ash tree that shades my van and gives me all the right lighting for a video. And I'll just say for now, I'll say peace out.